So council moved to move out of closed session, and then we did move into a short recess. I will call the meeting back to order, and I'm going to turn the chair over to Deputy Reeve Clausen to address agenda item 2.21.
Thank you. Council was presented with a piece of paper here that is dealing with, would talk about a motion made at last council meeting for procedures pursuant to a bylaw. I have a few things off the top of my head here. One, there's an active investigation going on at this moment, so we'd have to be careful what we do. If it has pertaining to the bylaw, we can bring the bylaw up and make sure that we followed the existing bylaw, which I believe we did. Is there a way we can get the existing bylaw? Sorry, this just came to us, so. And if we discuss this, I would suggest it goes in camera. We'd have to be very careful what we do here.
One thing I would suggest that council does is I think they should read and understand the handout that was provided, and then specifically look to it at the agenda addition. And then I think council should also allow Councillor Kester to explain the handout as well. That's, I think, the best steps for the chair to kind of proceed.
Yep, go ahead, please.
Okay. I bring this motion. Sorry. I bring this motion to council knowing that it is a bylaw, but also knowing council has the privilege of voting against their own bylaws, and matterly, we do vote against our bylaws from time to time. And I have been asked by members of the public what's going on because my name is mentioned. So I'll read the motion in its entirety, and then council can debate it, vote on it, and proceed from there. So whereas a previous motion from March 1st stated that council direct administration to hire an independent investigation team in accordance with bylaw 2022-05, section 14.5B, to follow the procedure set out in bylaw 2022-05 for the official complaint filed against Councillor Kester. Whereas the official complaint against Councillor Kester is in camera, thereby making it impossible for ratepayers to inform themselves of the issues of the complaint. Whereas Councillor Kester has always tried to be transparent with the ratepayers. However, with all councillors, we have been constrained by issues that are discussed in camera. Councillor Kester is named in a public motion, however the complainant, as well as the accusations against Councillor Kester, are in camera. I believe this is unfair to Councillor Kester and not transparent to our ratepayers. Therefore, it be resolved that Councillor Kester moves that council bring out of camera the official complaint against Councillor Kester, thereby fulfilling council's pledge to become more transparent and divulge the full details of the complaint and all the relevant allegations. And I further move that the findings of the investigation are made public. I know the investigation isn't done yet, but when it's done, I would like it done in public. And it all stems from my name being on the original motion. If it wasn't on, then it's in camera and nobody's named. But I'm named now, and I can't talk to my ratepayers. And it's the first time in 20 years I haven't been able to describe something to them being constrained. It's in camera. It feels to me like I'm dodging the question, right? Oh, it's in camera, and that's all I got to say. Doesn't have to be a lengthy thing. That's my motion.
Okay, thank you. Trying to think of wording here. So with the previous bylaw, bylaw that we used for this, we had just finished reviewing the council meeting before, and we all approved it, and it set out a clear guideline as to how the procedure was. So we have that. Looking back to previous term of council, we had code of conduct complaints against several councillors, I was one included, and it was very similar with the motions involved and everything like that. I do know after the fact, there was a discussion brought forward to possibly release that, and it was not moved forward. Myself, I would think this might be more appropriate after the investigation's done for discussion between the parties involved. I don't know how it's going to come out or anything like that. I have no idea. We can't talk to anything about what's going on because that's in an active investigation. And I'm not saying there's any type of investigation it is. I look to other municipalities, and I don't think a political figure should be involved in an active investigation. You hand it off to third party and let them do their thing.
I'm not intending this to deter or detract or to complement an investigation. This is just the allegations. Not about the investigation, not about making people know who to investigate. That is not the intent of this. It's just the allegation.
So I understand what you're saying, but if you can compromise an investigation by releasing things and it turns it political, and I don't think this is political. This is, like, I look at the bylaw right now, so we're going 1510 and it explains the investigation team, and 1511 clearly states a complaint and all information related to complaint investigation is confidential information. I believe that protects the people involved in it until such time as it's done, because there could be things that are deemed hearsay, there could be things that are deemed not valid, that kind of thing, and that's for that investigation team to do. Once that report is forward to us, if we want to discuss it as council in camera and release it, that's up to the majority vote of council. But I'm welcome to anybody's discussion. I'm not trying to influence any decisions here. I'm just trying to follow the bylaw as we just finished it, so. Go ahead.
Okay, couple things. Can you quote what part of the bylaw you were referencing to? Because I can't find that. You said 1511?
15.11.
15.11. Okay.
Well, this is the old bylaw, 2018-03.
Oh, so I'm looking at the new one.
Yeah. Sorry?
And it might just get changed to 14, I believe, just with the new wording of that bylaw and the numbering. I think everything went up.
Are we pulling it up on the screen here?
Yeah, I can pull it up on the
Please
screen.
do. So everybody can see the same thing. Because I realize there's some confusion because we did just change all this stuff. And we did shouldn't say change it, we reviewed it and updated it.
The other thing I'll mention while he's pulling that up, it's highly unusual for someone who's under investigation to be named and not be able to properly respond to what the complaints are. That is not the way a typical thing would say, and even in the bylaw it says that the councillor will have full access to the information and be able to respond. I'm just not seeing that in the way this has been handled.
So the new one is, it's up on the screen, it says investigation, so we got 14.1, complaint and all information related to the complaint investigation is confidential information. I don't know where we can, it's in the bylaw, we followed it, we voted on it, it carried, so if, with what we're in current process, I can't see that we can do anything else. And again, we followed procedure from what we had previously gone through. There was no complaints. My name was mentioned in one previously too, as were some other councillors, so. And thoughts from anyone else? There is a motion on the floor, so we will have to deal with that.
I would request a recorded vote.
And there will be a recorded vote requested.
I'm just looking at the bylaw and I don't see that there's any opportunity to bring it to the public. Is that should there be an opportunity at some point, maybe once the investigation is done? Like I'm trying to see if there's anything there. I don't see anything.
It isn't, from what my interpretation of this, there isn't in any, the complaint, it says the complaint, and all information related to complaint investigation is confidential information. So in reality, what you're saying is correct. Anything that goes there is confidential.
For all time. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Tracy from administration. I'd like to suggest that one way we could deal with this is to bring the bylaw back and talk about whether names are to be included in motions and what is released after, and then it's very clear and we have a consistent approach moving forward as well.
Which is, I totally agree, but that wouldn't help this current situation. This current situation has to follow the bylaw that was put in place at the time.
Yeah, and ultimately I would suggest if a bylaw is in place that council do follow it, and if the council chooses not to follow it, then amend it and then follow it. Because ultimately bylaws are there to be followed. If council's not happy with the bylaw, then amend it and move forward with it.
I agree with all that. And we make bylaws, but they never last. We always make a mistake. They're never all-inclusive all the time. That's why we're amending bylaws. That's why we're doing the land use bylaw. We do it all the time. And why do we do it? Because people find faults with it. People want different things. And I think naming me and nothing else, and then positively the conclusion of it, and I'm either guilty or not guilty, is totally unfair. If I had a traffic thing and I decide to go to court, that's all out in the open. I didn't. You're all seven sitting here. I haven't broken any arms or anything, right? Anybody can see that, but they don't know what I did. And being named, I find it unfair after I get the questions. If I wasn't named, it wouldn't be here. The conversation would be mute. So I think it's a flaw with the bylaw. If you're going to keep everything confidential but the name, and just one name, I find that all totally unfair and prejudiced towards the one that's accused.
I agree.
Everyone is innocent till proved guilty, and you have a burden of proof to prove it. But if it's all in camera, it's not in the public. Is that right?
So,
Especially when you could go to the courthouse in Strathmore and sit there and see all the things aired out. Is this really any different? Why does this have to be closed? I can see some things, investigation, all that, go ahead. But some of it has to be made public.
go ahead.
Just so I understand, the discussions that through this complaint, that relate to this complaint, that were in camera, those are the things that you want out, or you just want it so that you don't name anybody names?
What I want out.
Pardon me?
Let's take it like a speeding ticket. I get a speeding ticket, I'm named for speeding. Here, I got a complaint, but there's no name to it. I want the complaint out. It's a written complaint, like the speeding. So the police do their investigations, and it's all behind the scenes. And they come with a recommendation, and the judge says, guilty. But that recommendation, that determination by the investigator is public. He was speeding, we caught him on radar. He was doing this. It was a nice cloudy day and he was dangerous. You know how it might go. I want the same treatment here. I don't need all the camera talk. I don't need all the investigation talk. Just what I did wrong. And if I was judged by the investigator as right or wrong, and his comments. That's all. I don't need none of council's comments, anything. Just the charge and the verdict.
So
So right now, that's all in camera. Except my name. My name's out there, and I did something wrong.
I can speak to how it affected me prior, and I'm just trying to think to put this in context. So a prior investigation that was done on a public complaint to several of us, and my name was mentioned in there. Through the investigation, I was cleared. I had no problem with the investigation or my name being mentioned in the motion. That's part of being a public figure. You can have that. What you're looking at in court of law is different than politics. And we have clear guidelines that we had set out and passed. Now, you still have that opportunity, so you choose that all that information, and if you wanted to get legal representation, if you bring that out, you take all that away and it becomes political. And I don't, I'm, the way things are here, I believe is, well, we have to deal with it. Number one, let's be clear. The bylaw at the time is what we're following. If you want to change something in the future, that's fine, but we cannot change the bylaw with an active investigation going on. There's no way.
I'm going to defer this motion till after the investigation. I'm fine with that.
Myself, and I would think that would be more appropriate, but go ahead, Rick.
Okay. So first off, I would say, to your point, Deb, that everything needs to be confidential, we've already violated that bylaw because his name's been made public. So that argument is moot. As far as the other part, you're not really correct, okay? So there's two types of offenses, and I'm a professional, I know this, I was a professional investigator. There's two types of offenses. There's criminal offenses and there's strict liability offenses. Anything under the Municipal Government Act, and I talked with Derek about this and he confirmed this, anything that comes out of there is a strict liability offense. So the burden is on the councillors and the complaint that are making the complaint to prove in legal terms actus reus. This occurred. So that burden still lies on the people that made the complaint. And if we look at the bylaw says all of that information has to be provided to Councillor Kester. I don't know that that information's been provided to him. And that's the part that's not fair about this. And I mean, I can go into the whole other parts of strict liability, but I don't think anybody here is that well versed in that it would make sense. But there's already been a violation. There's been, to the best of my knowledge, and Glenn can speak to that if he's been provided that information, but our bylaw says he has to get all that information. I know when the investigator phoned me, he asked me two questions.
I don't know what's...
And that's all I could answer because everything else is in camera.
Yeah. We cannot talk about a current investigation. That cannot happen. We can talk about the bylaw that we have here that we passed prior to this, like going forward. If we want to change the bylaw, that will happen at a later date. But to change the bylaw pursuant to a current investigation cannot happen.
And I'm already telling you, it looks to me like we're not following the bylaw.
That's fine.
Can I ask Councillor Larison to clarify what section you don't think is being followed?
14.8. Along with the one that Councillor Klassen mentioned about keeping it confidential because we've already made Councillor Kessler's name public.
So my interpretation of 14.8 is you have an investigation team. If after reviewing If after reviewing the complaint, which is the process of what's happening right now, the investigation team determines that further investigation is warranted, the investigation team shall provide the council or member who is subject to the complaint a copy of the written complaint. So this hasn't even happened yet. It's active. It's not done. So when it's done, that information can come out, is how I look at it.
14
Okay,
days.
14 days is what it also says in there.
It's passed.
I believe we're beyond 14 days.
I'm sorry, but I haven't got a judgment as to what's gone on, all the information. I have no idea.
Neither have I, and I'm not asking for that.
14
But it
days
says
is to
after
provide a written
reviewing the
response.
14 days, he has to be provided that within 14 days, and I'll just ask him right now, have you been provided with anything?
What section are you looking at, Councillor?
14.8 again. The counselor gets 14 days to provide a written response to the complaint. And we still haven't, as far as I know, nothing's been given to him.
It doesn't say he has to be provided that within 14 days.
No, it
I'll
doesn't,
be
but
given
he has 14 days to respond.
Yes, so how is that being contravened?
And that has come and gone.
It hasn't
I'm not
started.
arguing the timelines or anything. I'm just arguing my name.
Can I ask?
And I can't defend it. Right? I've been here almost 20 years, and I can't defend it the first time. And I believe if you're not going to put anything out of camera except my name, that is hurtful to me and damaging to me. I'm not saying what happened to you in your investigation wasn't damaging to you, and that's okay. I just never thought of it that way when you were going through it. Now I'm going through it, I'm getting questioned, and I can't answer. If my name wasn't mentioned, everything would be cool. Nobody would know. But it was mentioned, and I'm getting asked. That's the only reason I'm putting this forward. If you're uncomfortable with the integrity of the investigation, I have no problem deferring this motion till after we get the report. And if that makes council happy, I will, I don't know if that's a motion to defer, or I just defer it. I just wanted to bring this motion out in public so that discussion is held so the ratepayers can hear it. That's it.
Can I just want to ask administration a question here. On 14.8, because there was a point brought up about this, has the complaint been reviewed by the investigation team at this time?
So the complaint was provided to the investigation team, and that's.
It has not been reviewed. Reviewed would be in,
So ultimately, that would be with the investigator. We have to follow up with that, but ultimately, administration.
and they've been given the bylaws?
Yes.
Yeah.
And follow-up questions with documents.
Okay.
So ultimately, the administration's role is just to provide information and act as a conduit. We really have no involvement in this. And as for the motion itself, administration was just trying to be consistent with what occurred in 2021. If council's not comfortable with that, what we can do is potentially amend that bylaw and have specific motions. And council also has a liberty of amending motions or not reading motions that are provided to council for reading or vote against them. So there's some other kind of opportunities to have as well.
Okay.
So
You have a motion on the floor.
I can make a motion to defer it till after the investigation.
The proper procedure, sorry, I'm not.
It would be-
Defer to
Yeah.
I think
a
it would be
later
motion-
date, and the later date is after the investigation, whenever it is.
I think it would be motion to withdraw and then, or just withdraw the motion and then present it at a future meeting.
That's another way. I can just withdraw.
Whatever doesn't diminish what he wants
Yep.
to do,
Yep.
that's fine.
I'll withdraw it till a later date.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think that has to be voted on.
No,
Thanks for listening to me.
absolutely, thank you. Back to you.
You can keep the
Everything.
papers.
probably prudent that we break. Let's break for 45 minutes. We will reconvene at 1:15. Thanks.